Good evening. Swami Sarvadevanandaji asked me to take the gospel reading tonight, so here we are. And we'll start with the traditional prayer that we chant for this study. Do you know, how many of you know it? Does Maharaj also chant this one? Tavakatamritam? All right, let's chant it together, those who know it. Om Tavakatamritam tapta jivanam kavibhiriditam kalmashapaham shravanamangalam shrimadatatam bhuvi grananti ye bhuridajanaha. This is, of course, from the Gopi Gita in the Bhagavata. The gopis are longing to see Sri Krishna, and they say, Tava Kathamritam, your words, even the talk about you, Katha, is Amrita. It is like nectar, and brings us to Amritam, the state of immortality. It takes us across the ocean of death to infinite eternal life. So, Tava Kathamritam. Tapta jivanam, we who are suffering in this world, the soul, the jivas who are tapta, burning in this world, this life, and kavihiritam, those same words which all the ancient sages and all the modern sages, they talk about you, about the reality, about the divine. Kalmashabham, it destroys it takes away our sin and our suffering and everything. And those words are Shravana Mangalam, auspicious, even to hear them is so auspicious. Mangalam, Shravana, to hear, Shravana Mangalam, Shri Madatatam, Bhugrananti Bhuida. They who spread these words far and wide are the true benefactors of humanity. Let's read a nice translation. O Lord, the nectar of your words gives life to those scorched by the world. Those words which have been declared by the knowers of truth dispel our ignorance. The very hearing of them is beneficial. Your words are beautiful, pleasing to the ear, pleasing to the heart. They are inexhaustible in the benefit they confer. Those who recount them on earth are the givers of the highest and the best. So that's a little translation there. Now I am proposing, I was trying to find because I'm not a regular reader for this class, so I chose a chapter just in the middle of the book, chapter 32, if those of you who are following along in the book, page 623. And this is the visit to the Cinti Brahmo Samaj on October 19, 1884. So Sri Ramakrishna visits this place, which is, let's read a little bit. On this day, Sri Ramakrishna again visited the Cinti Brahmo Samaj. It was the occasion of the autumn festival of the Samaj, which was being celebrated at Beni Madhav Pal's garden house. The hall was decorated with flowers and greens, flags and festoons of various colors. Outside, the blue autumn sky with its fleecy clouds was reflected in the water of the lake. Now, we know that actually the description that M gives is quite a bit more extensive, and not so important for us who want to drink in the nectar of Sri Ramakrishna's teachings. But the gospel also has another function, and that is to help us place ourselves in Sri Ramakrishna's presence, to bring ourselves into the here and now with Ramakrishna. So we are actually sitting not in the Hollywood temple, the Ramakrishna temple in Hollywood. We're sitting at Beni Madhav Pal's garden house, and Sri Ramakrishna is about to arrive. So if we can do that, then actually these extended descriptions are quite helpful. So I'm going to read that extended description, if I can figure out how to get to it, so that we can just enjoy placing ourselves in Sri Ramakrishna's presence. He is ever present, actually, right here right now. And if the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna is like a meditation manual, so we can think of him. So I'm going to read from, this is a rather clumsy translation perhaps, but it gives the description of the Brahmo devotees have again assembled at the Cinti Brahmo Samaj. It is 19 October 1884, the first day of the bright fortnight of the month of Kartik, the day after the Kali Puja. This is not mentioned in the Gospel, that it's the day after the Kali Puja. So Sri Ramakrishna would have spent the night, well, he always spent the night awake, but that night there were many other people at the Kali temple at Dakshineshwar awake, worshipping the Divine Mother. And the day after that, he's ready to go to Calcutta. Cinti, by the way, is, if you think of the city of Calcutta, and Dakshineshwar at those days was really a separate village to the north of Calcutta, and then further down is Baranagar, and if you go down further, comes Kashipur, right on the bank of the Ganga, and just a little bit in is Cinti. So it's not that far from Dakshineshwar. This is the time for the autumn festival. A session of the Brahmo Samaj is being held again in the beautiful garden house of Beni Madhav Pal. The morning worship is over. The Paramahamsa Deva arrives at 4:30. When his carriage stops in the middle of the garden, groups of devotees immediately encircle him. So can you imagine, the carriage pulls up, Sri Ramakrishna gets down, and the devotees go like bees to the lotus that's full. They all go to surround him. They're not like waiting, oh, he's here, well, let's see what he has to say. No, they all go and see. Oh, they're attracted to him. Sri Ramakrishna, people of all the different traditions would feel that Sri Ramakrishna was one of their own. So the Brahmos felt that Sri Ramakrishna was a Brahmo also at heart. And they knew of his very close relationship with Keshav Chandra Sen. They felt like he's a Brahmo. Okay, he worships Divine Mother Kali also, but actually at heart he's a Brahmo. And the Shaivas, the Shaktas, the Vaishnavas, they all thought that he belonged to their tradition. So it's amazing how he could be like that. The pulpit, the pulpit of the Samaj has been set in the first room, before which is the vestibule. Thakur enters the vestibule and sits down. The devotees follow and sit around him. They include Vijay and Trailokya, among others. A former member of the Brahmo Samaj, a sub-judge, is also present. Now there'll be this is the lengthy description. The Samaj house has been beautifully decorated for the great celebration, with multicolored flags strung about here and there. Some parts of the building and the ledges of the ventilators have been decorated with green foliage to give the illusion of beautiful and attractive trees. Outside, the blue autumnal sky casts its reflection in the clear water of the lake mentioned earlier. In the garden, on both sides of the red brick dust pathways, are rows of flowering trees and fruit trees. So it's a beautiful garden. It's not city, it's kind of half countryside. It's like not even suburban, but and the pathways, they used to cover them with brick dust. So if you break down a building, and what do you do with the old bricks? You make them into dust and you put that dust on the pathways. And I have seen in India still how they make the brick dust, and they make it the way, this is before big machinery. So there's a couple of guys with hammers basically making bricks into dust. Okay, so that's how they make brick dust. And they use it for mixing in with cement to make roofs and stairways. Bricks, lime, and brick dust, right? They use it for that too. Okay. In the garden, on both sides of the red brick dust pathways, are rows of flowering trees and fruit trees. Today again, the devotees will hear Thakur chant the Vedas. He will chant the same verses which once emanated from the mouths of the Aryan rishis. The same message was heard by the 12 unlettered fishermen disciples from the mouth of Jesus, the supreme sannyasin in human form, his mind and soul fixed in Brahman, solicitous of the suffering of mankind, the gracious, loving Lord of the devotees, God incarnate, overwhelmed with love for God. A similar chant issued from the Lord Sri Krishna in the form of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita on the holy field of Kurukshetra. These divine words, Arjuna, the humble and sincere son of Kunti, heard in thundering sounds from the mouth of Guru Satchidananda, who had come down in human form and served as his charioteer. And then M actually presents 3 verses from the Bhagavad Gita. Kavim Puranam Anushasitaram Anoriniyam Anusmaredyaha Sarvasya Dhataramachintya Rupam Aditya Varnam Tamasah Parastat, shining like the sun. That is why I brought the Gita to get the proper translation. Sorry, it's written transliterated, so I couldn't chant it well. So see how M is really setting the scene. He's describing how they're waiting for Sri Ramakrishna, and the M has begun to intuit that Sri Ramakrishna is not just a holy man, he's something more. He's a spiritual teacher on par with the great world teachers like Sri Krishna, like Jesus. And so he's waxing poetic here, and we can understand why Swami Nikhilananda did not translate this portion. It's a little bit didactic, it's a little bit, but it's for us who are in it, as it were. We are now, I think most of us here at least, we're fully in the tradition, and so this gives us a little bit of extra inspiration. So these verses 9 through 11, huh?
So you're reading from the iPad. What is that as opposed to the Gospel?
Well, this is a translation provided by the Sri Ma Trust. It's I don't know the name of the translator, but it's a English translation. It's a little awkward, and Swami Nikhilananda's translation is much more beautiful, and I trust it more for the actual teachings of Sri Ramakrishna. But for the descriptions which are left out here and there, it's helpful. Because I didn't have time to go through the Bengali and translate it and all that. That's a big job. But so these verses are Kavim Puranam Anushasitaram Anoraniyan Samanusmaredyaha, etc. The omniscient, the ancient, the overruler, minuter than an atom, the sustainer of all of form inconceivable, self-luminous like the sun and beyond the darkness of Maya. He who meditates on him, thus at the time of death, full of devotion, with the mind unmoving, and also by the power of yoga, fixing the whole prana betwixt the eyebrows, he goes to that supreme, resplendent Purusha. So this is the a verse that M quotes from the Gita, and then we'll see Sri Ramakrishna begins his teaching. So Sri Ramakrishna arrived at 4:30 in the afternoon. Entering the hall, he bowed down before the altar. I have seen a Brahmo Samaj. It's an abandoned Brahmo Samaj, almost abandoned, still maintained by the Brahmo Samaj in Calcutta. And the altar was simply a raised dais where the preacher would sit, sitting like this, but because he has to sit above everybody, so it would be high, kind of like maybe as high as this podium, or maybe even a little higher, and there'd be little steps, and then but there's just a little ledge around it, and then a little carpeted platform, so the preacher, the one conducting the worship, would sit there on that and conduct the service, which involved chanting different Upanishadic verses and giving a prayer and probably giving some kind of talk also. So Sri Ramakrishna would bow down before even this altar, though there's no image, it's just a place from which the sacred teachings were given. He bowed down before the altar. The Brahmo devotees, among whom could be noticed Vijay and Trailokya, sat around him. A sub-judge who was a member of the Brahmo Samaj was with them. Maybe he was a member, according to the other translation, a former member. Trailokya was entertaining the devotees with his melodious music. Now, I'm I know we're digressing a little, but I want to just remind us about who was Trailokya. He was one of the primary teachers of Keshab Sen's branch of the Brahmo Samaj. He was born in 1840, so he was just a little younger than Sri Ramakrishna, and he was a gifted musician. He had been initiated into the Brahmo Samaj by Vijay Krishna Goswami. So here it says Vijay and Trailokya are sitting there together. Actually, Trailokya was a disciple of Vijay, and then, of course, Vijay had been initiated by Keshab, so it was like that. And he is originally from Navadvip, which is the birthplace of, or near Navadvip, birthplace of Sri Chaitanya. And he participated in 1868. Keshab Sen started a new tradition of walking through the streets singing Brahmo songs. So sort of imitating the Vaishnavas, this is how they really made a real stir in 1868, walking through, and with this Trailokyanath. And he was one of the kind of 5 apostles of Keshab. And Keshab gave him the name Chiranjeev Sharma. Chiranjeev means eternally living, because Keshab was so pleased with his music. Now, and he was given the name, the singing apostle of the new dispensation. And he had over 1,000 compositions that they're published in several books. Sri Ramakrishna loved his music. He was a gifted musician, poet, and also a sincere devotee, because the love of God shines through his songs. And there are a number of his songs in the Gospel which were inspired, evidently, at least some of them, by Sri Ramakrishna himself. And yes, there's no doubt that he was inspired by Sri Ramakrishna, and he would put some of Sri Ramakrishna's teachings or some of his doings in the songs. And now comes the first song that we're going to have today, which is directly inspired by Sri Ramakrishna, obviously. So Trailokya was entertaining the devotees with his melodious music, so he's singing and the devotees are there, and then Sri Ramakrishna says to Trailokya, "That song of yours, O mother, make me mad with thy love. I enjoy very much. Won't you sing it?" And so Trailokya sings the song. "O mother, make me mad with thy love. What need have I of knowledge or reason? Make me drunk with thy love's wine. O thou who stealest thy bhaktas' hearts, drown me deep in the sea of thy love. Here in this world, this madhouse of thine, some laugh, some weep, some dance for joy. Jesus, Buddha, Moses, Gauranga, all are drunk with the wine of thy love. O mother, when shall I be blessed by joining their blissful company?" So this is the translation by Nikhilananji with John Moffat. I propose a little diversion. If you can bring that chord, that's the little coiled up chord, we can listen to it in the Bengali original. In the recording, the best recording that I know, which is the recording by Panalal Bhattacharya, who is was a great devotee of Divine Mother, and he has sung. Well, there's a number of recordings. They were all on 78 records, so they're all under 3 minutes, because 78s, at least in those days, when he was around, were very short. So we need to turn on this one, and let's try this. Okay. And one of the things I love about these recordings is they're very simple. There's just a few instruments. There'll be a harmonium and maybe a violin and a tabla and the kandini, the little hand cymbals, and nothing else. Nowadays, the devotional music is full of synthesizers and they're overdone, electronic stuff, and also just think, this is a one take. There was no overdubbing or anything. In those days, you get together with the musicians, you play the song, they record it, and it's over. There's no second take. Are we ready? Okay, let's try. Okay, we have to start over. Somehow it got...
আমার দে মা পাগল করে ব্রহ্মময়ী দে মা পাগল করে আমার কাজ নাই মা জ্ঞান বিচারে দে মা পাগল করে ব্রহ্মময়ী দে মা পাগল করে ব্রহ্মময়ী তোমার প্রেমে সুরা পানে করো মাতোয়ারা তোমার প্রেমে সুরা পানে করো মাতোয়ারা ওমা ভক্ত চিত্ত হরা ডুবাও প্রেম সাগরে দে মা পাগল করে ব্রহ্মময়ী দে মা পাগল করে ব্রহ্মময়ী তোমারে পাগলা গারো দে কেহ হাসে কেহ কাঁদে কেহ নাচে আনন্দ ভরে তোমারে পাগলা গারো দে কেহ হাসে কেহ কাঁদে কেহ নাচে আনন্দ ভরে ঈশা মুষা শ্রী চৈতন্য প্রেম ঘরে অচৈতন্য ঈশা মুষা শ্রী চৈতন্য প্রেম ঘরে অচৈতন্য হায় কবে হব মাধন মিশে তার ভিতরে দে মা পাগল করে ব্রহ্মময়ী দে মা পাগল করে ব্রহ্মময়ী স্বর্গেতে পাগলের মেলা যেমন গুরু তেমনি চেলা প্রেমের খেলাকে বুঝতে পারে স্বর্গেতে পাগলের মেলা যেমন গুরু তেমনি চেলা প্রেমের খেলাকে বুঝতে পারে তুমি প্রেমে উন্মাদিনী উমা পাগলের শিরোমণি তুমি প্রেমে উন্মাদিনী উমা পাগলের শিরোমণি প্রেম ধনে কর মাধনী কানার প্রেম দাসের দে মা পাগল করে ব্রহ্মময়ী দে মা পাগল করে ব্রহ্মময়ী দে মা পাগল করে আমার কাজ নাই মা জ্ঞান বিচারে দে মা পাগল করে
Okay, that is, it follows a sort of traditional Bengali style song where the first line repeats itself in between all the verses, and the third, there's a third section where the melody is different, like the bridge or something, and that's a standard form of the Bengali songs. And Amai de ma pagol kore, Brahmamoyi, oh mother, you who are the embodiment of Brahman, make me mad. You know, it was funny. I was, just before Arati, I was looking over this song, preparing for the class tonight, and then I walk in for Arati, and we had someone who was mad. You missed it. Sita, who is our resident Pagali, you know, she suddenly took offense and started talking loudly while we were trying to recite the prayers. She was talking loudly, rather inappropriate things, and it was first it was kind of shocking, and then it was actually hilarious. And I thought, here I was just reading this song, and then I come here and I find actually she's so. But Sri Ramakrishna, in another place, he tells Trailokya, this song of yours, this captures my ideal. This is my ideal. And there's a lot of beautiful stuff in here. Make me mad with thy love. What need have I of knowledge or reason? Jnana, arkajna, jnana, vichare. Jnana and vichara, this process of reasoning. He used to scold M, don't reason anymore, stop reasoning. Don't, just love. If we can love God, that is enough. But love is not just a kind of a fuzzy feeling. It's this intense attraction for the divine, this intense feeling of so much so that we get absorbed in it, that we become mad, as it were. And make me drunk with thy love's wine. O thou who stealest thy bhaktas' hearts, drown me deep in the sea of thy love. And there's this beautiful line, which you can't get the poetry in the translation. Let me see if I can read it. Isha Musha Sri Chaitanya Premer Bhore O Chaitanya. Isha, Jesus, Musha, Moses, Sri Chaitanya is a Sri Chaitanya or Gauranga. But you have to do it. Isha Musha Sri Chaitanya Premer Bhore. Overwhelmed with love. They are Achaitanya. They're unconscious. They have become unconscious, being fully overwhelmed by love. And so the rhyming of Isha Musa Sri Chaitanya Premir Bhore Chaitanya. So that's the some of the poetry of this. And then Hi Kobe Hobo Ma Dhamma. When will I be blessed, O mother, by attaining their company? Oh mother, when will I join their company and be blessed, attaining that level of madness, that level of intoxication in love? In the heaven, there's one line which is not translated in this gospel. Svargete Paglir Mela. There's a festival of madness going on in heaven. And this line, I'm not sure. As the guru, so the disciple. This play of love, who can understand it? Who can understand this play of love? Oh, mother, you are the one who is completely mad and intoxicated with love, and you grant me that wealth of prema dhan, that wealth of prema. Oh, you who are the queen of love, the queen of madness, something like that.
What is Isa?
Isa, Jesus. Isa Musa Sri Chaitanya. So the great teachers of the world's religions. Isha Musa Sri Chaitanya, Preme Bhore Achaitanya. They've been so intoxicated with love. Oh, right. Nikhilanji added Buddha. It's in the mood, you know. I think it's all right. And remember, these were turned into poems by John Moffat. Nikhilanji's disciple they worked together. Oh yes, Jesus, Buddha, Moses, Gauranga. They had to make it rhyme. It's beautiful. All are drunk with the wine of my love. Oh mother, when shall I be blessed by joining their blissful company? Okay, so there's one more. There's a couple more lines that they left off. Maybe it's fully translated in another part of the book. I'm not sure. So Sri Ramakrishna is listening to the song, and as we can expect, Sri Ramakrishna gets absorbed in the bhava of the song, the mood of the song, and he enters into samadhi. Means he becomes unconscious of the world and completely merged within the divine. His mind merges in the Divine Mother, the thought of the Divine Mother, and his senses cease functioning. There's no external consciousness at all. And M also gives a more lengthy description of this. It happens a number of times in the Gospel, and I think M is always amazed. If we who are regular readers of the Gospel, it's like, oh, Sri Ramakrishna goes into samadhi. Yeah, again, he's entering samadhi. He's having samadhi all the time. It's a regular thing. I'm going to have it tomorrow myself, you know. It's not so easy as that. It's a very rare state of complete absorption in the divine, and it is our ideal. And yes, we can have it today itself if we can just fully throw ourselves into the divine, plunge into the divine, withdraw our mind from everything, let go of everything, and plunge our mind in the thought of Divine Mother, and we can be fully absorbed. And Sri Ramakrishna could, of course, grant that just with a look or a touch. He could grant it. In his presence, others also experienced samadhi. He was not just established in samadhi, he was a granter of samadhi. So I'll read a little more from the more extended translation.
Swami, one quick question. Would he be always, when he enters the ecstatic mood, would he be always sitting, or sometimes he would get up and
True, he could be standing also. He could stand and go into ecstasy. That photograph of him at Kamal Kutir, the lotus, the lily cottage, where which Keshav Chandra sends home. That photograph where he's standing, he's also in samadhi. Then he would be sort of mind would have to become a little bit lower. He used to describe Sri Chaitanya as having three states, right? The state where he would chant, he would dance and sing, and the state where he could no longer speak, but he would still dance a little bit, and then the state where he would become completely motionless, fully absorbed. So as Sri Ramakrishna hears the song, there is a change in his mood. He at once passes into samadhi, on seeing within himself the great essence beyond all essences, beyond the 24 cosmic principles, and beyond even Mahat. It is as if all his organs of action and of sense, mind, intellect, and ego have vanished. His body is as motionless as a picture. Once, seeing such a state in Sri Krishna, Yudhishthira, the chief of the Pandavas, wept, his soul completely merged in Sri Krishna. At that time, Bhishma Deva, the pride of the dynasty of the Aryans, was lying on a bed of arrows, meditating deeply on God in his last moments. The Kurukshetra battle had just ended. It was a day when one cried in spite of oneself. Not able to understand Sri Krishna's state of samadhi, he wept. He was afraid that Sri Krishna had left his body. So he's giving a reference here to Mahabharata and Sri Krishna's samadhi. So now we'll come back to the gospel. As he listened to the song, the master's mind underwent a transformation, and presently he went into deep samadhi. Coming down a little to the plane of the sense world, he gave instruction to the devotees. His mind was still charged with the divine experience. His words were spoken as if in a state of intoxication. Gradually, he became again fully conscious of the world. Then he says, "O Mother, I don't want the bliss of divine inebriation. I shall eat siddhi." How is this? He doesn't want the bliss? We want the bliss. We want to get a drop of that bliss. We're struggling to get a drop of it. Sri Ramakrishna says he doesn't want it. Because he's come to teach. He's come to talk to the Brahma devotees about, he's come to guide them, to deepen their spiritual life. Maybe he's not fully conscious always that he has a message to give, that he has that he has come for this purpose, but he has come to uplift humanity, to re-enliven the Sanatana Dharma and all the dharmas, all the spiritual traditions. So then he says, I don't want the bliss of divine inebriation. I shall eat siddhi. And then he says, by siddhi, I mean the attainment of the spiritual goal and not one of the 8 occult powers. Siddhi means perfection. It also means these siddhis, these powers that we get, that some people, the yogis, can get if they want them, which take them away from the goal typically. About the occult powers, Sri Krishna said to Arjuna, "Friend, if you find anyone who has acquired even one of the 8 powers, then know for certain he will not realize me. For powers surely beget pride, and God cannot be realized if there is the slightest trace of pride." It strikes me that Sri Ramakrishna often comes back to this point. He often comes back to this point of siddhis. We don't want siddhis, we don't want powers. Powers are an obstacle. Why? It's very common in the Indian tradition that monks are supposed to have powers. They're expected to be able to read your palm and tell your future, maybe give you a good number to try for the lottery, cure you of an illness. Your child is sick, you bring your child, and the sadhu will sprinkle some ash on the child and pray, and the child gets cured, maybe, if he's a powerful monk who has actual siddhis, or they can read minds or manifest things. There's so many stories, and probably many of them are fake, but Swami Vivekananda himself experienced a yogi who had these powers. It was not a great saint, but he had powers, and he was demonstrated them. He became completely nude and just with a blanket covering him in a room, and he asked, well, ask for something. Somebody asked for fresh roses. He brought out from under the blanket fresh roses, just cut. Somebody else asked for fruits, grapes or something, not in season. Brought them out. Here they are. How he could do it, Swami Vivekananda himself was stumped. Of course, Vivekananda had not cultivated those powers at all. So there is a strong tendency in the Hindu tradition towards acquiring these powers. And we also maybe we also think we're meditating, and we start to think, hey, it would be pretty good if I didn't have to. I'm meditating, but I also have to earn a living. It would be pretty good if I could manifest some money right here so that I could pay my bills and meditate more on God, right? Or my mom is sick. If I could, cure her. So it's definitely a temptation, because the power, the mind, where are we going to put our mind? So Sri Ramakrishna comes back to this again and again. And in the prayer that he teaches us, grant me pure love, that prayer also he says, Mother, I don't want the 8 occult powers. I don't want 100 occult powers. Mother, just give me love. So depends what we want. That's really a spiritual life. That's the really important question. Do we want spiritual life, or do we want powers? If we want powers, we can seek those. That's all right. We can get those also.
What if they're gifts?
What if they're gifts?
From God, and you don't assume that you're going to foretell the future, but you're just aware of things, and you are able to prognosticate, and there is a validity of accuracy to a certain degree. I don't think you should banish the quote and make it a power and call it occult when it's really a gift to mankind if you do have prescience.
Well, that's a really nice thought, that it could be that these things come as a gift, and perhaps our calling is to use this gift in the service of humanity. But Sri Ramakrishna does caution the danger of leading to pride, and he will say Swami Vivekananda at a certain point had attained clairaudience, where he could hear and know what's happening at a distance. And he reported this to Sri Ramakrishna. Sri Ramakrishna said, "Stop! Don't meditate for a few days." He didn't want him to get these, because he had a higher calling. His calling was to spread the teachings of Vedanta to the whole world, spread the teachings of the immortality of the soul, the divinity of the soul, the service of the divine in humanity, to the whole world. So he was not to use these kinds of powers.
So didn't Ramakrishna also say that the other thing that can happen acquiring these powers is sometimes it goes into ego.
Ego, well, that's what he said right here. Pride, lead to pride. Pride or ego, yeah.
It's very hard.
Very, very hard to...
Egos, we're always struggling with egos. If a monk has ego, it's even more dangerous.
A monk with ego is more dangerous. Is it? we still, there are, I mean...
I don't think temper here and there, but
Yeah, right. We have, I mean, and yet we have, I think some of us may have seen some of our very senior monks who have some different, we've heard of monks having certain powers, like many of us probably experienced Swami Swahanandaji. Sometimes he would know what you were thinking. And usually he wouldn't let on, but sometimes he would let on that he knew what you're thinking. And suddenly, he knows. These kind of things. But yes, the path to realization is sharp as the edge of a razor. What do we really want? Do we want God? If the gifts come, and we can carry them gently and lightly and recognize always that they are simply gifts, and if we're guided to use them, but we're not using them for material gain or anything else like that, then beautiful. Once we start using them for material gain, then we're stepping away from our highest goal of realizing God. So now Sri Ramakrishna is talking about 4 classes of devotees. He says, according to a certain school of thought, there are 4 classes of devotees. They're the pravartaka, the sadhaka, the siddha, and the siddha of the siddha. What is that certain school of thought?
Sounds very tantric.
It's the kartabhajas. The kartabhajas. They are the left-handed tantrics, actually. So Sri Ramakrishna knew these people also, and he didn't typically encourage them, but he would appreciate some of the teachings, and he would say that perhaps every house has a back door, and even though that's not his path, for those people it's their path. So he's going to describe the different these 4 classes of devotees. Obviously, beginner, intermediate, advanced, and perfected. One who has just begun religious life is a pravartaka. Such a person puts his denominational marks on his body and forehead. Wears a rosary around his neck. Who's wearing a rosary? And scrupulously follows other outer conventions. Okay, this is in the beginning. We tend to, when the inner opening has not proceeded far, when we don't have so much within, we feel like we need the external supports. Sri Ramakrishna he wouldn't decry that. It has its place. It's a help in the very beginning. But then he says then he goes and describes the sadhaka. The sadhaka has advanced farther. His desire for outer show has become less. So this is like outer show. The sadhaka, his desire for outer show has become less. He or she longs for the realization of God and prays sincerely. He or she repeats the name of God and calls on him with a guileless heart. All right. So this is Sri Ramakrishna's, these are some of the essential teachings for spiritual practice in the path of devotion, prayer, repeating the name of God, and calling on God. Calling, not just praying, not just repeating the name, but also calling. And the difference, I often come back to this. When we pray, we think, oh Lord, give me this, give me that, help me, And when we call, it's like, Ma, help, Ma, Ma. And the perfect example of this, it's also in this precious book, when Sri Ramakrishna tells the story of a young boy who is afraid to walk through the forest. And his mom is very poor, so his mom just tells him, you call on your elder brother, your dada, Madhusudana. And Madhusudana, of course, is the name of Krishna. So he'll come if you call on him. So he's a very guileless boy, very sincere, and so he goes into the forest and he feels afraid and he calls for Madhusudana, Madhusudana Dada. Madhusudana Dada, Dada, where are you? And he doesn't come and he starts crying and then Sri Krishna comes. He doesn't know he's Sri Krishna. He only knows, oh, you're my brother. So he accompanies him on his way to school in the next village. And so every day when he's afraid, he calls on Madhusudana Dada, and Madhusudana Dada comes. And of course, there's another part to the story, but this idea of intensely calling on Madhusudana Dada is the part of the story that Sri Ramakrishna especially wanted to emphasize. Now, that night, M stays at the temple garden, and he went to the Nahabat. Holy Mother wasn't there at the time, so he went to the Nahabat, the concert tower, to sit upstairs. He had a poetic temperament. He thought from there he can see the Ganga and the moonlight and everything, and he'll meditate there. Sri Ramakrishna had encouraged him, why don't you go to the Panchavati, where Sri Ramakrishna himself had practiced so much meditation, but M goes to the Nahabat, and he meditates there for a while. Then he thinks, Sri Ramakrishna told me to go to the Panchavati. I should go to the Panchavati. So he goes to the Panchavati, and as he's approaching the Panchavati, he starts hearing a sound. And he's like, what's that sound? It sounds like someone's crying. And he goes further in, and then he sees through the foliage, and there's some beams of moonlight coming down, and he sees one of Sri Ramakrishna's young disciples on the ground, weeping piteously. Madhusudana Dada, where are you? Madhusudana Dada. he's weeping. It's not told who it is, but it was Latu, the future Swami Adbhutananda. So how Adbhutanandaji internalized that teaching of Sri Ramakrishna and spent the night actually weeping for the Lord. That is, to my mind, when Sri Ramakrishna says call on God, I think of that. We're really calling from the depths of our heart, oh Lord, help me. I want you. All right. So the sadhaka has advanced farther. His or her desire for outer show has become less, and he or she longs for the realization of God, longs and prays sincerely, repeats the name of God, and calls on God with a guileless heart. Now, whom should we call the siddha? One who has the absolute conviction that God exists and is the sole doer. One who has seen God. So this conviction, one has had a direct experience, and so the conviction becomes unshakable that the divine exists, the divine is true, is the true reality. But maybe such a person has just had one or two of such experiences. It's not that that person is constantly aware of the divine at all times. Still, that conviction becomes unshakable. Swami Swahananda used to say that deep conviction and unshakable conviction is itself a kind of realization. That you have this, as we go on in spiritual life, as we go on meditating, and also in studying the scriptures, our faith increases, and that gradually develops into a strong conviction. That's when Shraddha really matures, and it directs our whole life. Our whole life becomes oriented to the divine. Everything in our life gets incorporated in our spiritual life. And then, who is the siddha of the siddha? He or she who has not merely seen God, but has intimately talked with him as Father, Son, or Beloved. And Sri Ramakrishna tells this in so many different ways. This is again the jnana, vijnana, the one who is not just has the conviction that the divine exists, but has this deep personal relationship, talks to God, and God talks back to him or talks back to her. Sri Ramakrishna was constantly talking with Divine Mother, and then he would stop talking, and then he would say, oh, I understand. Now I understand, Mother. So Mother's also talking to him. We can hear Sri Ramakrishna talking to Mother. We don't hear Mother replying, but Sri Ramakrishna is hearing the Mother also speak to him. So it was a beautiful relationship, and not sometimes they would also argue. Sri Ramakrishna would argue with Mother. In the tradition, Ram Prasad, many of his songs are arguing with Mother. He gets ticked off. Mother, you're not showing yourself to me. I'm going to sue you. I'm going to sue you and win in court because I'm your son. You have to show yourself to me. And this kind of forcing our demand on the Divine Mother. It is one thing to believe beyond a doubt that fire exists in wood, but it is quite another to get the fire from the wood, cook rice with its help, appease one's hunger, and so be satisfied. These are two entirely different things. He uses this example, or he'll say milk, to see milk is one thing, to taste milk is another, to drink a whole glass of milk and be nourished by it is yet another. Different stages. No one can put a limit to spiritual experience. If you refer to one experience, there is another beyond that, and still another, and so on. Sri Ramakrishna would say there's no limit to God. You can never put a limit to the divine. That God can only be this and nothing more. God can only be realized as Krishna and not in any other form. God can only be realized if you accept him as Lord Jesus and not in any other form. These are all putting limitations on the infinite. So he would say you can't put a limit to God, and you can also not put a limit to spiritual experience. So this falls right in with his teaching, always go forward. Wherever we are, go forward. Go for it. There's beyond the grove of sandalwood trees, there's the copper mine, the silver mine, the gold mine, the diamond mine. Go forward, go forward. And then going into an ecstatic mood, referring to the Brahmos, he says, they are And then to the Brahmo devotees, be firm in one ideal, either in God with form or in the formless God. Then alone will you realize God, otherwise not. With firm and unwavering belief, the followers of God with form will realize him, as will those who speak of him as formless. You may eat a cake with icing, either straight or sidewise. It will taste sweet either way. Okay, so he's poking the Brahmos a little because they were a little bit fanatical about eschewing image worship and decrying image worship. And so Sri Ramakrishna is saying, it's good. Worship the formless. That's perfectly good. But never think that your way alone is right and that the people, worshippers of God with form, will not realize God. They will also realize. And if it all depends on what? Their sincerity, their longing, their intensity of longing. With firm and unwavering belief, the followers of God with form will realize him. So as we're talking about that conviction, as we develop that conviction, and that guides our whole life, when we develop the conviction not only that God exists, but that our true goal is to realize the divine. But you must have, so everybody laughs. He says if you eat the cake this way or that way, it's going to taste sweet either way. They all laugh. And then he says, but you must have firm conviction. You must pray to him wholeheartedly. Do you know what the God of worldly people is like? It is like children's saying to one another while at play, I swear by God. They have learnt the word from the quarrels of their aunts or grandmothers. Or it is like God to a dandy. The dandy, all spick and span, his lips red from chewing betel leaf, walks in the garden, cane in hand, and, plucking a flower, exclaims to his friend, ah, what a beautiful flower God has made. But this feeling of a worldly person is momentary. It lasts as long as a drop of water on a red-hot frying pan. Actually, a drop of water on a red-hot frying pan, it typically dances around for a little while, doesn't it? It develops a layer of steam between the water and the hot pan, and so it dances around, and then it sort of suddenly it just goes, it disappears completely. So. This quarrels of the aunts, it reminds me when I was in India, once I heard the quarrels of two village ladies, and it was brutal. And they're like, just shouting at each other across the fence. And then it subsided for a minute while they were doing their prayers. And the one, she had the little arati lamps and she was doing her thing. And so just for that, as soon as she sat down, again they were at it. So, you know, like, perfect example right here. Somehow still she knew she had to do her daily puja, but she just couldn't get it out of her. They couldn't drop it. They were brutal. So the kids hear that kind of stuff and they say, I swear by God, like that. The quarrels of their aunts or grandmothers. Okay. You must be firm in one ideal. Dive deep. Otherwise you cannot get the gems at the bottom of the ocean. You cannot pick up the gems if you only float on the surface. This idea that there are gems in the bottom of the ocean, and the ocean is actually our heart, and the gem is the gem of prema, of divine love. And then, of course, Sri Ramakrishna sings the song, and we're covering both of probably his two most favorite songs, the two songs that keep coming back. And I mean, there are many songs that repeat, but these two, I think, come more often than any other perhaps, and that is, dive deep, O mind. With these words, the master sang in the sweet voice that had bewitched the hearts of devotees like Keshav. Dive deep, O mind, dive deep in the ocean of God's beauty. If you descend to the uttermost depths, there you will find the gem of love. Go seek, O mind, go seek Vrindavan in your heart, where with his loving devotees Sri Krishna sports eternally. What's the next line? Who is it? It's not printed here. You only printed the first part. The translation is a little bit creative, shall we say. This song is also a beautiful song. It's a teaching song. Sri Ramakrishna used to use these songs partly as inspiration, and I think to uplift the minds and hearts of the devotees, and to teach. He was constantly teaching through song. And this was a Baul song. The first song, Trilokanath's song, this is a Baul song. The Bauls are the wandering minstrels of Bengal, who are like half monastic, actually, in the Vaishnava tradition typically, and they might have that one-stringed instrument called an ektar, and other funny instruments like drums, little drums and things like that, and they might dance, and they go into ecstasy as they sing these songs, and they'll go from village to village and get some alms from the villagers so this song is Nuber 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 rup shagore amar mon, ore nuber 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 rup shagore amar mon, tola tol patal kunjle, tola tol patal kunjle, pabire prem ratna dhan, pabire prem ratna dhan, nuber 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 rup shagore amar mon. So it's a song addressed to one's own mind. And Sri Ramakrishna often had these, that is in the Bengal tradition. There are many songs that addressed by the singers to their own minds. We're working with a mind which is inimical. Our mind doesn't want to settle down in spiritual life. So we sing to it. We say, oh mind, dive deep, dive, 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 doob, 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 dive, dive, dive. Where? Rup Shagore, in the Shagar, in the ocean of Rup, of that divine beauty, of that infinite beauty. Oh my mind, Amar Mon, oh my mind. Tolatol Patal Kunjle. These are the different, actually the different hells. Patal is the lowest hell, but here it means the very depth, the very most bottom of the ocean. Tolatol Patal Kunjle. If you seek at the very bottom of the ocean, what will you get? Pabi re prem ratnadhan. Pabi, oh my mind, you will attain. Pabi is the Tui form, the intimate form of address. So the singer's telling his own mind, you will get what? Premadhan, that gem of prema, that wealth, that true wealth, of infinite wealth of divine love. Where is it to be found? Right here. If we dive deep. Sri Ramakrishna, that's another of his oft-given teachings. One is go forward, the other is dive deep. Go forward and dive deep. Go deep, don't float on the surface. Dive deep. How do you dive? Pray, call on God, sing, go within, dive deep. And then the second line of the song is also Kunj, 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 kunj le pabi hridoy majhe Vrindabon. Kunj, 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 kunj le pabi hridoy majhe Vrindabon. Seek, seek, seek. If you seek, you will attain in your heart Vrindavan. You will find Vrindavan in your heart. Where Sri Krishna sports with his loving devotees, that's added by the poet translator. The idea is that we don't have to go to the external Vrindavan or the external Dakshineshwar. We can find it right here in our heart if we seek. So the idea is first dive, then seek. Kunj, 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 kunj le pabi hridoy majhe Vrindabon. Deep, deep, deep jnanir bati, deep, deep, deep jnanir bati. Jalbe hriday anukon, jalbe hriday anukon. Deep, 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 light up, light up, light up. Jnanir bati, the light of wisdom. Where? Jalbe hriday, let it shine unceasingly in the heart. Jalbe hriday anukon, without the unflickering lamp of wisdom in the heart. Jalbe hriday anukon, duber 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 rup shagore amar mon. Last verse. Dange 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 dangai dinge chalaya barshe konjon. Dange 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 dangai dinge chalaya barshe konjon. Dang dang dang. I think it's just some kind of meaningless syllable to kind of attracting attention or something. Dinge is our boat. Chalai abar shik. Who is that person who pilots the boat? Who pilots our boat? Who guides our life? Who's in charge? Who's in charge of our life, of the boat of our life? Yeah. Kubir bole shon shon shon, Kubir bole shon shon shon, Bhava Guru Sri Charan, Bhava Guru Sri Charan, Duba 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 rup shagore amar mon. So Kubir, often these songs have the author's name, the singer's name in the last line. Kubir says, listen, listen, listen. Shon shon shon, Bhava Guru Sri Charan. Meditate on Sri Guru's feet. Meditate on the blessed feet of the Guru. So he doesn't exactly say who is it who is piloting our life. Kubir says, listen, listen, listen. This is the secret. This is what I'm telling you. Meditate on the Guru's feet. So in the Baul tradition, they typically worship the formless, and the place of the Guru is very important in that tradition. So, Bhava Guru Sri Charan, meditate on the feet of the Guru. Meditate on the feet of the Lord. So we have talked for over an hour, and you gave me this wonderful opportunity to dive into two of my favorite songs, which are two of Sri Ramakrishna's favorite songs. And of course, then as Sri Ramakrishna is singing this, M records, the devotees felt as if they were in paradise itself. His final instruction after the song, he's just cementing what he's just taught through the song. He says, dive deep, learn to love God, plunge into divine love. And then we won't go much into this, but you see, I have heard how you pray. Why do you Brahmos dwell so much on the glories of God? Is there such a great need of your saying over and over again, O God, you have created the sky, the great oceans, the lunar world, the solar world, and the stellar world. Like in their prayers, they would describe the glories of God. And he's trying to encourage them, go deeper. You're still on the surface. Everyone likes to praise the garden, but who seeks to know the owner of the garden? So, any comments, questions?
Maharaj, what is Diksha in the context of the Brahma Samaj?
I don't know. I just was researching, and I read that Trailokya was initiated in the Brahma Samaj by Vijay. Maybe it's that you sign your pledge. I don't know. It could be something like that. I'm not sure. And it was online, so how reliable it is, we don't know. But at least there's some evidence, and it's reasonable evidence, and there they are together, sitting together, that Vijay sort of initiated him or introduced him, inducted him into the Brahmo fold. It seems like an interesting question. Yeah. Yes.
Swamiji, so I'm curious about Ramakrishna saying to the Samaj people that to find the gems you had to dig deep into your own tradition and continue deeply in that. I think that's what he meant. I wanted to ask, did Ramakrishna think that someone new to spiritual life had to select between the formless and the godly form when it came to devotion?
Would he encourage a newcomer in spiritual life to choose a particular path, formless or with form? Yes. He has the parable of the man who wanted to dig a well. Do you know the parable? All right, there's somebody has decided he needs water, he needs a well for his house, so he goes out and he starts digging, and pretty soon he hits a bed of sand, and it's falling in on itself, and so he says, okay, this is not a good spot, let me dig over there, and he digs down and he hits a bed of clay, and it's rock hard, he can't get through it, so okay, let me try over there, and there he hits big rocks, and he thinks, oh, this is not a good spot, let me go over there, so he never gets water. You have to dig in one spot and dig through the sand, go through all the obstacles. Sri Ramakrishna typically, in his lifetime, we find that he used to encourage people to meditate, pick a form of God. M was very fond of the formless, but he would say, how do you meditate on the formless? How can you conceive of the formless? You're embodied, you have a form, you think only in forms. How can you think of the formless? So he would encourage M, at least, and M finally, I think, came around, and he was a great devotee of Divine Mother. And a great devotee of Sri Ramakrishna. He would often meditate. He started meditating on Sri Ramakrishna himself, even during the Master's lifetime. So that was a form that he could meditate on. Before that, he meditated on his own mother. He asked Sri Ramakrishna, can one meditate on one's own mother? And he said, well, yes. One's own mother is a manifestation of Divine Mother. So a form gives the mind something to hold on to. However, we have mantras also, which are formless. Om is the Maha Mantra. It refers to the formless, infinite divine reality, and we can meditate on infinite light. Can we hold the mind to that? We can, if that's our path. We find a path and stick to it. That's the great advantage of finding a teacher that we can really trust, and then following their instructions. Because otherwise, well, my meditation on Om is not going so well. Maybe I'll try meditate on Krishna. And then after a few weeks of that, it's not really going so well. Probably, Sri Ramakrishna told Kali, I'll meditate on Kali now. So we don't go deep. We're digging wells in different spots. Of course, there's another, I myself used the argument that, well, see, I'm not digging a well in a different spot. I'm just using a different shovel. Sometimes I use a shovel, sometimes I use a spade, and sometimes I use a pick. I'm digging in the same spot, really, honest. But Sri Ramakrishna didn't seem to support that interpretation when he's too much. Maybe to a certain extent we can just take that attitude, but typically he wanted us to. So that's when, if we have a teacher, then okay, my teacher has instructed me this way. I'll follow that and just stick with that. That's right, because if we really want to go deep, it's easier when we stick with one. We see Sri Ramakrishna worshipping all the different divine manifestations and Christianity, Islam, everything. We think, well, I can do that too. But just think, he did all that after realizing Divine Mother. So that's my thoughts on that. All right.
There's like a description of Mama with her hair or her clothes. But in Thakur's Dhyana Mantra, we get no such thing, except for maybe his light of legs or something like that. So why is the Thakur Dhyana Mantra so formless?
The Sri Ramakrishna, the meditation verses on Sri Ramakrishna. Right, well, the third verse, it comes to the physical. The first verse is the completely transcendental. The second verse is like the divine. And the third verse is the physical. Describing, yes, he's come to, he has embodied himself to bring devotion and peace and wisdom and all those things. And he's a very tender-bodied. But why will you have to ask those who composed these hymns, these verses? Both are composed by Swami Mahendranath. Right. Yes, the one of Mother, that's also beautiful. But I think we'll probably take that up some other time. The Mother's meditation verse and Sri Ramakrishna's meditation verses, those could be taken up also as they're beautiful, no doubt. Shall we take just a moment of silence so we can just let tonight's reading, as such as it was, Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Mritangamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. From the unreal, lead us to the real. From darkness, lead us unto light. From death, lead us to immortality. Om, peace, peace.